Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to Noles Anonymous, a show that we started, I want to say, I think 3 years ago,
Yep.
actually, at this point. And now we went over to lockdown for a little bit. We want to thank each and every single one of them for making us, allowing us to be there for us each and every single day. But now we are back, we're independent, and we're just hanging out. And I always going to have my boy Dave here with me. Dave, how's it hanging?
Drake, this is an exciting time. We're excited to, we're going to give you our thoughts as we always have. It's not going to have the same kind of structure every episode. We're here to hang out. We're here to kind of do our own little support group that we started out doing. We don't have as much of a need for it. Florida State football is good. How about that? Look what happened in 3 years, Drake.
What happened in 3 years? Both of us got engaged. FSU football is finally back. The Yankees are in dead last in the AL East, and the Marlins are this close to a playoff spot, and then I think only won 12 of their past 37 games. But Dave, you said it before, this team hasn't been this good in quite some time, and this is probably the most excited I've been for a season since heading into the Alabama game in
Mhm.
2017.
Yeah.
Dave, how do you feel right now? Actually, how do you think the fan base as a whole feels right now heading into this year?
I think there's a good word for this, Drake. I think the word is vulnerable. And the reason I think that is because it doesn't feel like there's a ton of the fan base left, myself included, that needs a lot of convincing. There's a lot of hype around this team, but it's not the traditional kind of hype you hear when you associate that word with. When you hear hype, you think what Florida and Miami are saying this year, which is we could be good. Like, we could do things. No, it's not the hype of Florida State Pass. It's not the hype that a lot of teams have. We're talking a roster that on both sides of the ball and at virtually every position is loaded with talent that's either all American or all conference level or otherwise just has elite potential. With having seen some of that potential already come to fruition. So I think a lot of the fan base is ready to be hurt. Like they're feeling like this is the season that a lot of the national media is predicting Florida State to have, which is a playoff contending team. So, you
I
know,
mean, Desmond Howard puts in his top 4, which I don't know how to
yeah,
feel about that because he always has
yeah.
I think last year, I think he had Pitt in there for
Right,
some
right.
reason, which so I'm not
Washington, I think.
Washington well, Washington is a good team this
Yeah.
season, but, listen, I mean, it does feel like it's different now. It's hitting a little bit different, as the kids would say.
Yeah, it hits different, but it is different. Like we're talking about a quarterback that some people in Jordan Travis that some people did need a little bit of time to see with their own eyes
Yeah, me
what
me and you.
me and you we needed to see it for ourselves and we saw it. He made an astronomical jump last year to the point where now he's a Heisman candidate, Heisman contender. That's a real thing. And he's throwing to guys that when you look at this wide receiver room a few years ago, you were talking about the number one receiver for our team being either Pokey or Keyshawn. And now we're talking about Johnny Wilson, who is going to contend for one of the best receivers in the country. He's going to play on Sundays. We're talking about Keon Coleman, who is going to be playing on Sundays, is going to contend for one of the best receivers in the country. And we're talking about a guy that we had on the roster last year, but we didn't even get to see in Winston Wright. Our three top receivers are all transfers, which, do whatever you want with them being transfers. I don't really care. They're here and there are players and they're damn good players. So we've remade the entire offensive system with a running back that I also said I need to see because Trey Benson was coming off a knee injury when we took him. You're and an offensive line that 3 years ago was among the worst in the FBS. And now we're talking about probably being one of the best lines in the ACC, if not the Power Five. So just total remake from what we saw when we were standing there at that, what was it? The Boise State game where was it Boise State where we were up by whatever it was at half and
Listen, man, we don't I think we've gone past that. I think we're, further down the line enough that we don't need to talk about that game where the team wasn't
oh, I remember.
rehydrated enough, or the team,
Yeah.
wasn't able to, pick up a fumble recovery. That was a team that also we lost to Hank Bachmeier, who Obviously, also transferred and playing the game last night against FIU as the new quarterback for the Louisiana Tech. But you're right. I mean, this team, the weapons that now surround Jordan Travis, we saw Jamal Wilson take the next step up, and then you add a player, a kid that you mentioned, Keon Coleman, who actually he's a proven commodity with it like last year, Michigan State, 58 receptions, almost 800 yards, 7 TDs. Like that's a kid that's a dynamite returner, dynamite athlete. And then defensively, you retain all your major players. Fabian Lovett came back. So did Jared Verse. That shocked a lot of people. We talked about, before we left, if we're locked on. And then you add a player like a Braden Fisk, a Gilbert Edmond from South Carolina. This is a team that you always talk about depth being probably the most important part of a team. That depth, talent also being healthy for the majority of the year. This is a fully stacked, fully loaded team that's played, together as a unit, and it's going to hopefully this season look good as a unit.
Right. And I think exactly as a unit. And I think one of the most shocking things to me is if I were to ask you like what's the weakest position group on the team, what would you say?
Safety.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But the answer wasn't linebacker and the answer wasn't wide receiver. And we spent episodes, man, weeks talking about how bad those two position groups were. And we just went over the wide receiver unit, which might have the 3 best receivers in the country. I mean, Ohio State's got some pretty good receivers, but
Brian Harline, that man needs to get a head coaching job somewhere else. Please just stop.
right,
Stop.
exactly. But point is, we're talking about that as a major strength of this team. The linebackers. I don't know about you. I'm real excited to see what this linebacking unit does with Tatum Bethune and Kalen DeLoach leading the charge. Like that could be a very good linebacking unit. So we have just flipped the script on everything. I think there's still probably some people out there in Florida State fans who are like, listen, I know it's Florida State. We see this hype all the time. I'm used to that. They went through the 2000s. And they're not fully bought into the idea of us being a playoff contender yet. I understand that. Like, I don't think you're crazy for thinking that, but just the fact that we're sitting here right now talking about this being a truly a playoff contending team. Mike Norvell, what is there to say about this guy? Like, he's beloved among most of this fan base now. Not just for what he's done, but it feels like the way he's done it. It feels like a guy who kind of gets what he needs to do. And we're not going to got newsflash out there, everyone. We're not going to get every 5-star player we recruit. That's not on Mike Norvell. That's how the world works. But what he is doing is he's even developed now kind of one of the things that had been plaguing most people's opinions of him, which is, can you recruit? Can you recruit the high school level, especially? Well, now he's doing that too. There's not much left to say bad about this team, this staff, this administration. And we're going to do another episode on something that's really grinding my gears about conference realignment and how that kind of like weirdly shifted the focus of this off season for a little bit. But everything about this upcoming season and this team and the staff and this administration for this upcoming season screams that they all understand the opportunity in front of them and that they have the talent level to reach it if they really have some, if they really execute correctly and have some good breaks.
So then one thing I kind of will say to that is that it feels like a lot hinges on the outcome of the season, right? I mean, you look at this is the first year in the ACC where it is now divisionless football when it comes to scheduling. You don't play NC State. You don't play a lot of the teams that kind of give you some weird trouble for some reason. You have kind of an easier schedule after you have that Clemson game in week 4.
Yep.
So, and then also, like we were saying earlier, you return a lot of players. Jordan Travis is not only a Heisman contender, but he's probably a top 3 betting odds favorite at any of your local sports books. Actually, you want to put money on it right now. I think I saw a graphic last night in the USC game where it was both him and Jared Verse were like the top 5 candidates to watch for the Heisman Trophy for this season. So then, Dave, when it comes to not only expectations, but like how much is riding on this season, what do you think needs to? Sorry, I'll scratch that. What do you see as a successfully executed season from your own eyes for this team?
Okay, that I think there's a minimum to that, and I don't know if it's too aggressive because I think there
Well,
may be
it's
some.
you, Dave. Everything is too aggressive with you.
Right. I think there's probably some people out there who, like, if we went 9-3, for example, and like had a big bowl win, that a 10-win season would suffice for them because that's still a step in the right direction from like years of, I'm not going to say mediocrity, sucking.
What
Just
you said 9-3 and then 10-1 being a bowl.
I'm saying for some people, there's that probably like I think that's where probably some people are. Like
Okay.
that's not enough for me. I think if you're gonna hype a team to this degree and you have this many guys coming back and doing something very out of the norm and out of their own self-interest probably in coming back to Florida State. Like Jared Verse probably wouldn't have been a top 10 pick. He probably would have already been making millions of dollars and playing on Sundays. He didn't. And Fabian Lovett probably could have gone. Trey Benson probably could have gone. Like there were a lot of guys on this roster that could have left, but just said, nah, I'm putting my chips in. We're gonna do something special. And so you got to do special if you're going to have that. Like the stars kind of feel like they've aligned for this team a little bit. And if you're not talking about a minimum 10-win team in the regular season, something went very wrong. And we're talking about, just to be clear, like barring a major injury to like some of our key guys. Like, but if everybody's relatively healthy, you got to go 10-2 at minimum. You can't have those losses be to anybody other than somebody like Clemson, and I mean LSU would obviously. I don't want to lose that game. I don't think we will, but it would be a forgivable loss in a sense, like an understandable loss. Like if you lost LSU, you lost to Clemson. You rematched against Clemson and beat them in the ACC championship. That's an 11-2 team that's probably just on the outside looking into the playoffs, but you're playing in a New Year's Six game, and I think you're carrying the momentum still with that kind of season. So I think that's kind of the threshold. What do you think?
So, well, for me, mm, you kind of cut me off. I was going to ask you, like, where should we be ending up? Whether it be like ranking wise or an ACC title game, or could it be, on the outside looking for a CFP? For me, I think you need to win 10 games regular season.
Yeah.
I think only 2 of the games are, LSU. This is an LSU team that doesn't have Mason Smith, and we beat them last year with the same thing, right? Their secondary is also having some issues. Jane Daniels is a very, very damn good QB. We saw that last year. We saw it throughout the entirety of the year.
Yeah.
But I think depth wise, I think FSU is on a much better spot. I think LSU next season actually might be a top tier elite team. So to me, that's not the excusable loss. I think Clemson. I think you lose that game regular season, but then you get your lick back in the ACC championship game. I think you play them twice, and that second loss to me, I don't know, for some reason, I think it's gonna be one of those losses that we're kind of scratching our heads because there's always one of those for the season. But overall, to me, I think 10 wins is the minimum with an appearance in the ACC championship game. Now, I know a lot of people want to go to the CFP, and I think this is the roster to do it. I think it's a very talented team. It's a very complete team, but we need to stay fully healthy for a full season, and that's something that's kind of like I want to throw that caution to the wind with that and like not take that into account. But if you look at all the FSC former, national championship teams back in 93, 99, and also 2013, those teams' injury luck was superb and astounding. And we're already, hearing about, reports of players not fully practicing or, just getting back to practice. So for me, this team ending up wise, I see them as an ACC champion, but they might be the, outside looking in. But also, like, you have to take into account what the CFP says, whether it's like, do we leave ACC champion out? Do we do that? Do we let somebody else in? So, like, to me, I think ACC title game is actually where his team ends up. So 10 wins minimum overall.
Yeah, and I guess like that begs the question to me: would missing the ACC championship game this season, especially with a divisionless ACC now, be a catastrophic event for you? Like, would that be the apocalypse?
Not the apocalypse, but I mean, I got the schedule pulled up right now. Let me actually see if I can share it real quick before I forget. But overall, like to me, I think not making the ACC championship, that would be a major, major, major problem.
Yep.
Primarily because look at the schedule right now as I pull it up. Right. So your ACC games are Boston College, Clemson, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Duke, Wake Forest, Pitt, Miami. Right. Those are all very, very, very winnable games. The Clemson game I know is going to be tough because we haven't beaten them in 6 years, and I know we're ranked ahead of them right now in the preseason poll. I don't. To me, you don't rank somebody ahead of somebody until they actually beaten them. So that's just more my kind of where I'm at. But Boston College, terrible. Virginia Tech, bottom tier team in the country last year.
Yep.
Syracuse, not a good team at all. Period.
Yep.
Duke is going to be a sneaky game. That's going to be
Yeah.
a tougher game. I think Ryan Leonard's actually a really damn good QB, but that should be a winnable game because it's also at home. And you got Wake. Sam Hartman's gone. He's at Notre Dame. Pitt, Pitt, Pitt's head coach last year complained about throwing the ball too much when they had Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison the year before. So if that leads you, if that kind of lets you know who the brain trust is over in Pittsburgh, whatever. And then you got Miami, who
Yeah.
I'm
Miami.
not even going to start talking about them until they actually do something, football,
Right.
acceptable wise in football. So, but to me, yeah, you look at that schedule with AC and like you should be undefeated in conference play except for maybe one game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right to me too. And to get back to your earlier question, this has to be a top 10 team at the end of the year. Because if it's not, what would be? Right? Like
What do you
if
mean?
you're going in with this level of talent and hype and things going right in terms of how the roster has taken shape and how the guys on the roster have developed. If this team can't compete, and I understand we still have depth to build, we still have more talent to infuse into this roster. Like it's not chock full of 5 stars like it was on that 2013 team. So there is room to grow this roster still. But if you have 2 guys that they're advertising as among the 5 favorite Heisman finalists, and they're on the opposite sides of the ball, meaning you have one guy on each side, and you have every position group loaded with household names that are going to be in the mix to play on Sundays, if not locks to play on Sundays. If that doesn't make you a top 10 team at the end of the year, I just don't know what will. And you have this fan base so bought in right now. Like I am fully ready to be hurt by this season if need be. Like I truly believe this is an 11-win regular season team. And if this one isn't, I think you're just going to get a lot of deflation from people going into next year, like expecting, well, shit, if that happened last year with that roster, what the hell is going to happen with Jordan Travis and Trey Benson and Fabian Lovett and Jared Verse? And I mean, keep naming names. And the only safety we have who we are sure about right now, I think, is Akeem Dent and Tatum Bethune. And you can keep naming all the
I'm about
names.
to say they not. But I'm about to say I think people need to understand that also like the amount how you're listing them off right now. These are all players that are going to be exhausted their eligibility and probably most likely will not be coming back for next season.
Yep.
And they've also been in this system with the team for at least 2 years or more. I think Fabian Lovett's been here since 2020, right? So like this is going to be his 4th year actually with the program. So if you look at the team overall, like they've been with this team for so long. The core has been attacked. It's kind of like when you watch the Braves right now.
Yep.
In baseball, as much as I can't stand them, but like they have a homegrown system of Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, and they're right now the best team in the damn planet.
Yep.
And that's what this team probably is very capable of doing. And they showed, last year that they're fully capable of doing it too.
Yeah. So I mean that's exactly the point here is the hype is for a reason. It's not just like, look at all these 5 stars we brought in. We're Texas A&M. We should be good because of that. But no. We're talking about proven productivity in and not just at the high school level on this team. We're talking about continuity at among the most important positions in football, including the most important position with Jordan Travis. So you bring all those things together and you have to feel good. You can't.
Mhm.
I don't understand the mindset of the few Florida State straggler fans left out there who are just constantly still spewing negativity and pessimism about this team. It's unfounded. Like you can be worried that it won't turn out as well as we want, but to expect that this team won't be anything other than excellent is not based on the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is this coaching staff has done their job to this point to get the team to this point. The kids on the team have done their job to improve since they've been on campus and mesh well together. And the culmination of that is a potential playoff contending team. And are we as talented as Georgia or Alabama? No. Like,
No.
again, 5 stars backing up 5 stars, backing up 5 stars. Just because you're a 5-star doesn't mean you're good necessarily, but it makes it pretty damn likely that you're going to have special attributes.
I would say more often than not. I mean, I think they've
Yeah.
gone recruiting, people that rank them. I think they've gotten pretty good at their job over the past 30 years.
Right. And but since we last broadcasted, since we last did our podcast, Drake, we were in a position, I think, back then where we were ranked like 15th or something in recruiting, and we were starting to question, like, all right, what the hell, guys? Like, we just had a great year,
What the hell,
and
guys? That was like legitimately. It's like, come on, man.
right though,
Oh,
like
but hey,
we
but
just
to be fair, you don't see the fruits of the labor and from the last season until like, the next cycle. So that can that's. But you can keep going.
but that was the question we were asking ourselves. That was the question people were asking is, okay, the coaches can bring in transfers. Okay, the coaches can develop players. Okay, the coaches can call games on both sides of the ball. I know you probably you might still have some reservations about Adam Fuller, but the defense has gotten
As always.
better and it's looking good. Point being, fast forward now a couple months and we're a top 5 recruiting class in the country. So that has filled up all the question marks that I had about this staff and this team. I can't point out to you a clear negative or clear question mark other than just, will special teams be the most limiting attribute of or group of this team? I mean, if we can be good on special teams, I think this team has every tool covered. But that's the only question mark you got. So, Drake, I feel great. I couldn't feel better about this team, and that's coming from the negative Nancy himself. And I think everybody out there should too. If you check Twitter, it seems like they are. So it's just great to see. It's a great time, good vibes. I'm loving it.
I was about to say, when was the last time you felt like this about LSU football?
It's 2014. Like truly, like this. It was it was in 2000 and early 2014 before we started having to pull off every game real close.
Hmm.
But it's been that long. It's been 10 years.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. I was like, man, we're adding Dalvin Cook to all this. Yeah,
Yep.
that's kind of like I think the last time I kind of felt like that. Even though I will say the most excited I was, I think was the 2017 game. Even though I think it was more because we were playing Alabama. I was like, oh yeah, we can beat them. We show them, and then we all know how that story ended and the ensuing chapters how that followed how that happened. But Dave, where do you want to go next with this? We've already done our expectations. We've already welcomed everyone back. Where do you want to go next? Actually, with today, you want to talk about the game? You want to talk about players you want to see? Like or people you're most excited about? Or because remember now, we don't have ad breaks, right, Dave?
We don't have ad breaks, but Drake,
But
speaking
hit
of
me up if you
which,
want to, put spill some time
yeah,
on me.
right, right.
Yeah.
No, we are proud to not have to let you sit through commercials now. That was that was something I mean, look, we did what we had to do. And some people in the comments didn't love the commercial breaks. But we don't have many more. So you're listening ad free. You're welcome. And thank you also for being
Because we're
here.
broke.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
But no, I mean, I guess like I don't want to get too granular. Like there's a lot of guys, I don't want to just hand off all of our viewership, but like we all know there's plenty of really good podcasts out there that are diving really deep, really well into specifics of that game. We're support grouping each other right now, Drake. Let's talk more big picture. Like I want to know two things from you. Like what is the biggest concern to you about this team heading into this season, and what are you what do you expect will surprise most about this team, good or bad?
The secondary concerns me. And the only reason and it's not because it's more me being, I guess, the nervous Nelly kind of, of that, mainly because I saw what Patrick Surtain did for the Miami Dolphins with Cater Cahoon being an undrafted player, and then he also being a very good and very actually at times solid cornerback for the Miami Dolphins in his rookie season before he came over to FSU. My concern with secondary is mainly how we're going to see these kids again, adapt and with his teachings, how you're actually going to improve, from the previous secondary course that we did have. And then the other part of my secondary issue is that Jamie Robinson is gone. And he was, by all accounts, kind of the field general back there, actually at the safety spot. And I love Akeem Denny. He's a great player, but hopefully he's able to stay fully healthy. And that's been the main concern with him since he's been here. And then also, who's going to be replacing Jamie Robinson actually at that spot? Is it going to be Shaheem Brown in a full role? I mean, I think he definitely can. He's got the athleticism for it. Is it going to be Kevin Knowles switching from corner to safety? So I think secondary for me personally is the biggest kind of thing that I can circle, but it's also maybe the only thing aside from special teams, whether it be the field goal game. So to me, I think secondary is kind of the big glaring thing for that. And
Yeah,
then,
that's
what
right.
was your second question?
Second question: what do you think is going to be the biggest surprise, good or bad, about this team this year?
Ooh, so biggest surprise, good or bad? That's a really hard question. That I really, really don't know because I feel like we've covered the team enough that's gonna be hard to surprise at this point. Maybe actually what I was just saying about the kicking unit. Maybe we actually finally have, a solid dynamic duo, whether it be with Tyler Kellner, the transfer, and also Ryan Fitzgerald. Maybe, just maybe, welcome surprise that he doesn't miss a single field goal this season. Actually, I'm gonna say that right now. Ryan Fitzgerald will not miss a single field goal he attempts this year. There you go. That's gonna be the big surprise for the year.
Yeah, wow. That's not words I expected to ever hear come out of anyone's mouth. But yeah, I sure hope that happens. Go get him, buddy. I hope you do it too. I'm gonna start with your first point here about the biggest concern about this team.
Mhm.
If you watch that USC game and you watch kind of like the analysis and takeaway of it, it was, wow, they have a really good quarterback, but that team is not sniffing the playoffs because they don't have or play or care about defense. And to be clear, this Florida State defense is very different from that USC defense, both in terms of personnel as well as the degree to which the coaches care about it to begin with. So that's very different. But if your secondary is just a sieve and teams are able to do whatever the hell they want and, you know, just throw the ball all over the place on you, it's football has a lot of luck involved in it. And
Mhm.
if you're just doing those shootouts every week where you're having to score, eventually you're going to fumble it and that's going to blow a game. That doesn't work. You got to play defense too. So I'm not saying that that's like that we're in the position where our defense is like one bad play away from costing us a game necessarily. But I do think that that's one of the concern areas. It's not my biggest concern. My concern is special teams for that exact same reason, which is to say, if you're going to have a special season, you're
Your
going to
special
have to
teams
get a
need to
lucky
be
break. You're going to win a game by a field goal or by 1 point or kicking with like 1 second on the clock to win it. It's going to happen.
so your special teams need to be special for the special season, triple S over here?
Wow, that's I couldn't have said it better myself, Drake. Thank you for that.
Gotcha,
Special teams
gotcha.
got to be special for this special season, as Drake said. Thank you. That is my biggest concern. We're gonna have to, like, I really hope Mastro, his hang time and his leg power has gotten really good in the offseason because flipping the field and relying on our defense to pin teams deep is going to help this offense. Like, the show is not all about the offense. Big names are there, a lot of talent, a lot of NFL level talent, but that's not the whole show. When the wheels were really turning in 2013, the offense was helping the defense was helping the offense. They were making life easier for each other, and that's why we had the scoring margin we did. So it that's what you're hoping to see this year, but that's leaving out the detail of special teams. If we're missing field goals, that's changing the game plan. You saw it with Norvell having to make decisions. Screw it. Do I just go for two? We can't even make an extra point. Like, that's a legitimate problem. And I don't think we're there. I expect the kickers to be better than that. But I really do think like a game's going to come down to special teams play. And the difference between making a playoff and not making a playoff is sometimes just a matter of, do you have that extra one in the win column? Like if you're talking about a 1-loss team versus a 2-loss team. So I think that could end up mattering very much. Biggest surprise for me is I think you're going to see more young names on this team play this year than you're expecting. And not because we are relying on them. Like, for example, like if you get into some big blowouts this year, I really hope we get to see like Hakeem Williams and Jacobs at receiver. Like I really want to see what those kids are made of. And I think one or more freshmen on this team is going to end up earning themselves a significant role, probably in the secondary, like you said. Like there's room to take control of a number 2 spot on the depth chart at that safety position. And I think you're going to see a freshman step up and play a significant role on this team at an important position.
Hmm. I didn't really think of it that way. 'Cause I'm not gonna lie to you, I feel like there's, like we know so much about this team that when you say, like, surprise, like, it's whenever I think it's surprised, like, okay, it's you look at a team that's, like, kinda on the come up. I feel like this team has already, came up and now kind of, rising towards an occasion that we feel that they're gonna be successful at.
Yep.
But I think, yeah, looking at the young kids like a Blake Nicholson in the linebacking core, or even the kid's name escaped me, the linebacker from Stranahan from last year, that the only one we took, but, like, he's a stud, friends with Hakeem Williams. He's gonna probably be playing a large role in that. And also, I mean, young kids that also, transferred in, like, I think that Justin Cryer is gonna be one kid you're gonna look at from Northwestern. Like, there's a lot of young, good talent in this team with this roster. But then there's also, I know you're saying the young guns gonna, have a shot. The old guys too that came in too, like a Braden Fisk or, a kid that, I was hyped about in high school, but he went to South Carolina and came over to us now, is Jaheim Bell. And that's a player that, overall to me, I feel like that kid's gonna be the X factor for me for this entire season. I think this team will definitely have, like, a different look when Jaheim Bell is on the field. Dave, who's gonna be the X factor for you for this season?
Ooh.
Offense or defense? You got pick. Could it be Ronaldo
So
Green over at corner? Could it be, a Trey Benson? Could it be CJ Campbell, the walk on that, that kid, he's fast.
all
That guy
right.
can run.
Yeah, it was between two for me. It was between Akeem Dent and Pat Payton, and it's Pat and Payton. If Patrick Payton has a similar level of development to this year than he did from the previous year, you're going to be talking about the scariest defensive line combo in the country, and the scariest defensive line combo we've had at Florida State in a long, long time. Because Jared Verse, we already know what he is. Patrick Payton's already very good for a very young player. And if you have anywhere near the level of fear and productivity out of Pat Payton's side on defensive end as you do at Jared Verse's side, you're not going to be able to double team. It's gonna blow up offensive game plans. And if the defense is matching what our offense is not probably definitely going to be doing this year, this team, I'll say this. If the defense is as good as the offense, this is a playoff team. I'm
Oh, that,
pretty
yeah, I must say that was like that. To me, the offense is gonna be top 10.
yeah.
The defense, I think last year, ended up in S&P plus around the mid 40s, right? And that was a defense that also, me and you were like, all right, this bend but don't break nonsense is literally going to give me hives.
Yeah, right. But there is so much data and analysis on this, but it starts up front. If you're strong along the defensive line, it has a domino effect, makes the linebackers' lives easier, and it makes the secondary that you're worried about easier. So if you have Peyton and Verse out there ruining lives with, by the way, Fabian Lovett and Braden Fisk and Robert Cooper on the inside, this is going to be a top 25 defense that can push for that, competing with the offense type territory. That's how you make the playoffs. It starts right there up front on that defensive line.
It truly does, because like Dave was saying earlier, you watch the USC game, offense, amazing. That Zach Branch is a Kara Branch kid. I think he had a kickoff return for a touchdown. He
Yep.
had a 74-yard run for a touchdown. Kelly Williams is still Kelly Williams. Elite offense, probably
Mhm.
top 5 in the country. That defense. Alex Grinch is robbing USC each and every single biweekly payment for being called, because that is not defense at all. I would rather have if I was them, I'd rather have Charles Kelly calling my defense than Alex Grinch.
Could have said any name, Drake. I would rather have Dan Mullen calling my defense, and Dan Mullen's not even a defensive coach. But yeah,
No, it's not.
that's the entire point. This season can't be USC. It can't be this high flying greatest show on turf, Kurt Warner Rams type offense
Can't
with
be one dimensional.
nope. Can't be a Big 12 or yeah, can't be a Big 12 or a Pac 12 defense. So I guess that leaves me with one final question for you, Drake. And dive as deep as you feel like here, or as broad as you feel like. How do you feel going into not just, I mean, obviously we talked about how we feel going into the season. How do you feel going into our matchup about LSU? This is a top 10 matchup. And you just said yourself, you thought LSU is going to be better next year than they are this year. This is Florida State's money year. What's your gauge your emotional and football IQ level heading into this game against LSU?
I have a very generic Neanderthal answer because of how I felt all week. I I don't know why, and for those of you that know, I'm very risk averse when it comes to a lot of things. Dave Nick knows that with sports, I'm like terrible with that. for some reason, I have every fiber of my being thinks that we're gonna dog walk them in
Yeah.
Orlando. I don't know why, and that team is gonna be good. Like, I think it's their season. They're gonna be a very good team. You saw that LSU team, over the course of the entire season. They beat Alabama. They were a very, very good team. Jaden Daniels is a very, very good QB. That defense is very good. But also, this Florida State team, for some reason, just feels like it's a different breed, a different animal than last season. And it all starts from the top with Coach Mike Norvell. You saw him kind of grow as a coach over the season. You saw the same thing with Alex Atkins, that coordinator. Even Adam Fuller, who I have said for 3 years, I have wanted that man fired, but he showed a defense when he finally had all pieces in place that he's actually a very good defense coordinator. Can't believe it said it on the podcast. That I'm turning over a new leaf on this new show. And then you have Jordan Travis, a quarterback who almost quit the sport, but now is one of the Heisman frontrunners for the season. Trey Benson, a running back who runs like a man possessed through the entire field. And then defensively, that defensive line, Dave, you were just talking about, it's going to be scary for the court for them over there. And that offensive line for LSU, it already was kind of banged up last season. They're okay. They're decent. But you need to be better than decent to survive as defensive line onslaught. So to me, this is a game that I've already told you I won't be at the game. You're gonna be at the game with all the boys. I'm gonna be at a wedding. I feel fine because I feel we're just gonna beat them like 42-24 or something like that. And that's how I feel, even 42-20. I would say less points, but but football's not like that anymore. A 20-point game for another team, that's fine. That's almost like a shutout at this point in this era. So to me, we're gonna dog walk them, Dave. We're gonna
I've had.
we're gonna mess them up. Oof.
Oh, I like that. I
Sorry.
like
Oh,
this
there it is.
fire.
We're gonna them up. There you
Thank
go.
you. Where's this coming from? I miss this Drake.
I
This
know.
is
I
this
know.
is it's the Drake I know and love. Yeah, I've been having this internal like monologue in my head all week, trying to decide how I feel about that. And I don't want to say it either, but I feel the same way, man. Like, look, this is like a dumb way to look at that game, but Florida
We're a
State
dumb show.
Florida State are a dumb show, and we're dumb people on a dumb show. But no, that we dominated LSU until like late in the third quarter of that game. And, like
Yeah.
most of that game didn't look uber competitive. And it obviously ended up needing to block an extra point to not force overtime because Jane Daniels did Jane Daniels stuff. But
The kid's good.
he is.
He's a really good quarterback. Come on now.
Brian Kelly's in year 2 of that program now. And he has more to do to that roster. Like, it had problems when he got there. The fact that he did what he did with that roster is a testament, I think, to what I questioned, which is Brian Kelly going to be able to be successful at an SEC school or outside the context of Notre Dame? I'm impressed by what he did there year 1. I think they're going to be a problem in college football sooner than later.
Oh, dude, I think Brian Kelly's going to win national championship at LSU.
Probably.
For years. Yeah, I think so. Like he's a damn good coach.
Yeah, but that is not the situation he's in 2023. That is the situation Florida State feels like it's in 2023. There's not like a huge talent discrepancy between the rosters. So it's not like I'm saying we're going to go out there with this like far more talented roster. But if you're talking about like known commodities and known productivity at every level of the football on both sides, this is a more complete Florida State team. And like I said, it feels like a special season incoming based on everything we know and everything we've seen. And if the stars are going to align for that special season, go out there and win a top 10 road match. Go beat 2 SEC teams. Put that on your playoff resume. That's going to help at the end of the year. And I feel the same way. I feel like it's one of those 41-20 type games.
Yeah, we're gonna see a little bit of Brock Glenn, the future of Florida State football, actually probably in that game. But no, I mean it's gonna be a really, really fun game. I'm kind of salty I won't be there, join the rest of y'all, but I will be there in spirit, hanging out. Dave, I've missed this so much.
Me too.
Folks, as we said earlier, we are back. We're not doing the daily format. That's not our thing. We're becoming, intermittently throughout the year, talking about the games, talking about what we feel like that. Also, we're bringing back old friends, new friends, actually to the show to help us talk about football and everything else. And Dave, I know, that you haven't done this in a while. Could you please let the folks know what they can do at home and send them on their way?
Oh God, I don't even remember anymore. Yeah. go on YouTube, watch the video. You're already watching it, so you've already done the first step. That's great stuff. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. That's awesome. Do that. Leave us a comment. Just, how you feeling? How you feeling about this Florida State team? I don't even care if you're a Florida State fan. Just how do you feel about Florida State in 2023? Leave us a comment. We're going to talk about it. We have more time and leeway we have a little more time and leeway to talk about whatever the hell we want now. And that includes everyone's comments and feelings. And that's what I want to hear about. Drake, I do want to say again, we're going to be coming back soon and doing an episode on conference realignment because I'm really pissed off about it. So look forward to that. You're going to really enjoy that.
Well, Dave's pissed off about a lot of things, folks. But for Dave, this was Drake. And just like Florida State football, Noles Anonymous is back. Take care, everybody.
Baby.